Hi, my name is Dr. Nanette Hartley, and I'm the Physical Sciences Coordinator here at Trident Technical College. I'm doing the general safety introduction for you guys today. We're doing a new kind of lab now, so we're doing the open labs, and I wanted to give you some information about how those open labs work. So what you need to do for the open labs, you're going to attend your lecture at a fixed lecture time with your instructor, and that instructor will grade all of your materials. But your labs, you'll be able to sign up at any different time when we have them available. So how that will work is you'll get a QR code within your D2L shell. You'll be able to scan that code and it will allow you to sign up for any of the lab times we have available. So we have 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. times Monday through Thursday. We have 11:30 to 2:30 times, and we have 6 to 9 p.m. again, Monday through Thursday. So those are the times that we have available. Those will be with different instructors. You have no guarantee of who will be in that room at that time. It doesn't really matter because your labs will be based on the information that you've watched in our pre-lab videos. And then you'll go to the lab to perform that experiment basically on your own. So you'll be there, you'll have a supervisory instructor to watch over you to make sure you don't kill yourself. But you're responsible for doing that experiment on your own. Before you can go to that experiment, you have to watch the pre-recorded video, and then you have to take a safety quiz based on that video. That safety quiz has to be passed with a 65%. You are responsible for doing that. If that doesn't happen the first time, you do get a second opportunity to do so, but you have to meet with your instructor first to go over that material again. That way, you have a better opportunity of passing it the second time. In the event that it doesn't get past the second time, then you have to meet with your instructor again, and you do get one additional time to be able to do that. In the event that you don't pass it the third time, unfortunately, you don't get another opportunity. So you will not be allowed to do that experiment. You will not get a passing grade on that particular quiz. That means you won't get to do the survey after that lab, and so you're missing out on a couple hundred points for that particular experiment. So the 100 points for the lab and the 100 points for the survey. So once you've gone and done the experiment, you'll then get a reminder to do the survey, which will then give you another 100 points for that experiment. Okay, so that's the general structure of the flex labs, the open labs that we're doing. Okay, a couple other things that we're going to talk about with the safety for our labs. So things that you need to be aware of. When you're in the laboratories, you need to be aware of who you are and what you're doing. So we really ask that you be cognizant of other people in the lab. We don't want you to make loud noises, be doing this kind of thing, because it scares other people. That can be really jarring to other people in the laboratories. So try to avoid that kind of stuff. It can be very hard for other people to be concentrating on what they're doing when it happens. We want you to be aware of where your things are and what they look like. It's very important in the laboratory to have your stuff labeled, because if it's not labeled and somebody else knocks it over, they have no idea what it is and therefore how to clean it up. Okay? In the industry, if you have something that's unlabeled and an OSHA inspector is to walk past it, that's a $10,000 per day per incident fine. That's a big deal. So we need to make sure that that is a habit that you build while you're here in this laboratory. So that's something we need to make sure that you're aware of. We need to make sure that you're properly dressed when you come to lab. So things that you can do, we would like you to be wearing pants, no shorts. Those pants need to be fully covered, i.e. no holes in them, because that means that they're not actually pants. Okay? We need to be wearing shoes that are acceptable. So love my docs, though I do, I can't get them off in an emergency. If I can't get them off, then I can't get my pants off if they're covered in chemicals. So that's not acceptable either. I can't wear Crocs because they don't actually cover my feet. I can't wear canvas shoes because the chemicals will go directly through them. So things that I need to be aware of. I can't wear sandals. So those are not covering my feet either. Those don't fly. I need to not be wearing a shirt that doesn't cover my midriff unless I'm willing to wear a lab coat over it. Okay, if I want to wear a lab coat, then it's perfectly fine. That's your choice. Okay? You're not required to wear a lab coat, but if you choose to do so, you can. They are available at the bookstore or online. They're perfectly fine. Some of us wear them all the time. You are not required to wear a lab coat. You are not required to wear a lab apron, but those are things that you can choose to wear if you want to. The one thing I didn't talk about in terms of what to wear, no really long billowy sleeves. And the reason for that is, again, it can knock things over when you're in the laboratory. That's a hazard to you and to other people. If you have long hair and you're going to be working with a hot plate, it is highly recommended that you pull that hair back. If you're going to be working with acids in the lab, we have a couple of labs where we work with acids. I would highly recommend that you pull long hair back, because if you're wearing gloves and you're working with acids, you really don't want that acid in your hair. So pull the hair back to make sure that we're not doing that. Other things that we can't be doing in the laboratory. Obviously, we have no children in our laboratories because that's a safety issue. So if you can't arrange childcare for your children when you have a laboratory, then we need to deal with that. So contact your instructor. We can make other arrangements for you in the event that that happens. If you have a service animal, we can make arrangements for that service animal. That has to go through disability services, but that can be done. Otherwise, no animals in the laboratory. It's a safety issue as well. We can't have a lot of horseplay in the lab. That is not acceptable. You cannot do any unauthorized experiments. If it is not something that is written in your lab manual, it cannot happen. Okay? Please don't test this. I've had students who have decided to do an unauthorized experiment, and that has meant that they have had to not only leave that laboratory, but leave all laboratories on campus, and some of them have had to leave campus entirely, i.e. no more student at TTC. Depends on the nature of the experiment that they've attempted. No eating, drinking, smoking, vaping, any number of those things. And that includes gum chewing in the laboratories. All of those things are methods by which chemicals can get into your body, and we can't have that. It's a risk you can't take, and I won't allow you to take if you're in my lab. Okay? If you have a drink that you want to have with you, it can be outside of the laboratory. You can step outside of the lab to take that drink. I'm a type 1 diabetic, so if I have a need to step out to have something to eat, I can have that food outside, but it cannot be in the lab. So it can be outside. I can step out to have it. That's fine. If I have a need to do that, obviously it's necessary for other people in the lab to know about that, because I may have a need to step out and deal with that. Other people may need to know that that's an issue. So that is something that you can speak to your instructor about so that they're aware of that, because there may come a time when you have to step away from the lab entirely because of what's going on. So that's something you can talk to your instructor about on the down low so that they know about it. Not everybody needs to know. Okay, I choose to be open about that, but that's my choice. All right. We do have a set of lab safety rules. Those are things you're going to have to sign off with your instructor. They are in your lab manual. You will be required to sign off on that. If you are unwilling to sign off on that sheet, you cannot perform these labs. Period. End of sentence. Won't sign off, can't do it. Okay? So that is a necessary part of this. Like I said, you will have to do a pre-lab quiz before you're allowed to attend any other experiment. Okay? You will be given a QR code for each lab. Once you've passed that quiz, that QR code will be your entry form into the lab. So you'll be expected to scan that QR code when you get to lab, and the lab instructor who's there will then say, "You're authorized to come into lab." That's awesome. When you're done with that experiment, after you've checked your kit back in, we're asking you to scan back out, so that way we know how long you were in the lab. It's not Big Brother watching you, it's just information for us so that we have an idea of how long you spent on that lab. We want to know how long it took you, just because we need to know, should we make the labs longer, should we make the labs shorter? It's information for us about how long those things took. So this is our safety shower. In the event that you get chemicals onto yourself and we need to get them off of you, we will need to put you into this safety shower. In the event that that happens, we are going to ask everyone else to walk out of this room, because if you need to be in the safety shower, we have to get your clothes off because they likely have chemicals on them as well. Notice that there is no drain here. So when this gets turned on, all of that water has to come down onto this floor so they can be cleaned up and remediated. So everyone needs to exit this room in the event that we have to use this particular shower. So that's our safety shower. This is one in the back. Back here in the back of the room, we also have a fire extinguisher in the event that we need to put out a fire back here. Please don't use one unless you've been trained to do so. As we come around this side of the room, we have our secondary exit, which goes through 306 into the organic laboratory. It's another way for us to get out in case the front door is blocked by fire. We have a secondary safety shower here in the front. This is right by 307A. This is, again, same purpose, same reasoning, same ways that it works, but another place for that. Okay. As we come across the front of the room, over to the other side, we have our eye wash. And our eye wash is necessary in case we have anything in our eyes that we need to get out of them. And our eye wash station is to be used anytime you've gotten chemicals in your eyes. Obviously, this is not at the best position to get my eyes into. So this particular device does pull up, it does turn so that I can use this. When I use this, I'm going to squeeze this handle and I'm going to get water to come out of this. So obviously it goes pretty far, makes a huge mess. So I will clean that up later. But that is how we would do that, is I would put this up against my eyes. If I have glasses, I'll have to take them off. But I would put that up against my eyes and I would use that at a full volume to try and get that chemical out of my eyes. It is important that you do that and that you do it for as long as possible so that you get everything out of your eyeballs, okay? If you need to come up here, what I will tell you is you won't be able to see when you need to come up here. So you need to practice coming to this station without being able to see. So your goal is to go from wherever you're working in the lab to this station without using your sight. Practice that before you need it. Okay, if you need help getting up here, when you have that chemical in your eye, say, somebody help me get to the eye wash station.
Help me get to the eye wash station.
That's the best thing you can do. Obviously, your instructor should be the person who's helping you with that, but if they're off paying attention to someone else, or if they panic, which happens from time to time, then somebody else can help you to do that. Your best bet is to say to someone, Sarah, help me to do this. Because if you identify someone by name, they're more likely to be able to help you, okay? So being able to do that is helpful in an emergency situation. So this is where you will find your eye wash. That is how it is properly used. If you have any questions about that, please ask before you actually need it. Again, there is no drain for this, so we will have the same situation here. So we need people to get out of the way when we're doing this. So that's our eye wash station. We have a secondary fire extinguisher here, which is actually a different type, but there is another one here. As we come across this front desk, we have our safety data sheets. So if you're interested in looking at any of the chemical hazards that might be in any of the materials that we work with, these are available to you here, and they are in this room right here, so you can come and look at them. As we come across this bench, we also have another fire extinguisher here. Okay. We then have our fire blanket. Now, our fire blanket is not particularly useful. We don't particularly use it for fires, but in the event that you have to go into the safety shower, we can use it to cover you up until people can give you something to wear. Okay. This is our primary exit door. This is where you enter and exit the lab. So if you have to come out this door, you will go out this door and directly to our right and down those stairs and out into the parking lot behind us. So that's how we will exit. So that is everything we have for this. So we've got a couple of experiments where we specifically need to be worried about our glove protocols. And those experiments are the solution concentration, the titration, standardization, and the titration for the vinegar concentration. So when we talk about those experiments, it's absolutely necessary that we wear gloves for the entire experiments. For the other experiments, gloves are recommended. They're not necessarily necessary. It's never that we don't want you to wear them, but you don't have to wear them for the other experiments. For these, it's necessary. So I want to show you how to properly put on a pair of gloves, how to take them off, and then talk about what are proper protocols for using those gloves in those experiments. So let's talk about how we put those gloves on. So we're going to take gloves out of this container. Here's one, here's two. I'm going to set those down. We're going to make sure that we put them on appropriately. So we want to make sure that we get our thumbs into the thumb spots on our gloves. So that's one. I want to get that over my watch because I want to make sure I don't kill my watch while I'm wearing it. And then I have my second one, if I can get this thing sorted out because they're all shoved in there and not necessarily easy to put on. Some people take their rings off before they do this. It depends on how big your rings are. I have ones that are tiny so I don't break through my gloves. That was a decision we made. But these are how I put them on. Putting them on is the easy part, okay? Taking them off is not the easy part. When I'm in the lab and I'm working with these gloves, everything is fine. If I have to leave the lab for whatever reason, I need to go to the bathroom, I need to take a phone call, I need to eat something, I need to do something outside of the lab, including taking a drink, then I need to take these gloves off. So if I'm going to take these gloves off, I can take the first one off fairly easily, right? Fairly simple. But when I go to take the second one off, I want to hook my fingers inside of it, grab a hold of the inside, and then pull it off like that so that I'm holding the inside when I'm dealing with it, not the contaminated outside part of the glove. And then I take those off. I'm then going to wash my hands to make sure that I get anything off of my hands that shouldn't be there, because sometimes we accidentally get chemicals inside, okay? And then I'm going to go do whatever I need to do. When I come back to the lab, I'm going to go to the front bench. I'm going to wash my hands again, just because I'm paranoid. And then I'm going to put on another pair of gloves. And I'll do that before I handle anything in the normal part of the lab. Okay, because chemicals can be just about anywhere. So we want to make sure that we're dealing with clean hands before we put them back into those gloves. Now, things that we need to make sure that we're dealing with when we talk about these experiments. We put those gloves on before we handle anything, because you may not be the first lab for that week. So the things that we're dealing with may not be as clean as we want them to be. So we want to make sure that we're dealing with, everything in gloves. So make sure we've got those dealt with the gloves on. Anything that we deal with in the lab needs to be done that way. Anytime anybody is working with anything, doesn't matter if it's chemical or not, for those labs, we need to be wearing those gloves, okay? So I think that's everything I need to talk about with the gloves. So thanks, guys, I appreciate it. So we're gonna talk about hot plate safety. So a couple of labs, we're going to be working with our hot plates. We need to make sure that we talk about what is acceptable, what is not acceptable, what are good things to do, what are bad things to do. So these are the hot plates that we're typically using when we work with our hot plates. Obviously, this one is not plugged in, and when we plug these things in, they become a nuisance to be around. Now, we can plug them in. We'll see that they turn on. This is turned very low temperature, not a big deal. One of the things that we have to be concerned about when we plug these things in is that they've got these wonderful cords on them. Cords are great because they allow us to get power to this thing so that we can use it. But we have to be careful because we don't want this cord to suddenly become on the top of this thing. I've seen students do this, or on the side of this thing, because as it gets hot, that then becomes a burn concern. Okay, it will melt that plastic, it will become a problem. So we end up with cords are exposed, and that becomes an issue for the safety of this product. Okay, so we need to make sure we don't do that. Other things that we don't want on the surface of this thing when it's turned on and it's actually hot, anything plastic, like our pipettes, we don't want those on our surface. This is cold, so I can do that. Okay, we don't want this lovely thing that is supposed to be something that we can carry hot stuff with is not something that we want to put on the surface of this. Notice that this has been used to take, once our beaker is hot, we often put these on here, we heat things up, and then we're told in several of the labs to take them off and put them on these mitts. Bad idea, extremely bad idea. Why? Because that's what happens. And it melts that material and it gets on the bottom of these beakers. Don't do that. Okay, even though the lab manuals say to do that, don't do it. Okay, we're trying to edit all of that so it doesn't say to do that. You don't want to put this on here. You can put it on other benches, but not the benches in this room. So you want to put that on a wire gauze. You can put that on a ring stand so that it's up off of the bench. But make sure that you're putting it on a gauze and not directly on the bench. Okay, so that's not something we want to do. We don't want to assume that this beaker is cold. I can't tell the difference between a cold beaker and a hot beaker. So I want to make sure that when I approach this beaker, no matter where it's sitting, that I approach it from the back side of my hand and make sure that I feel it to see if it's cold or hot. All right, so if it's hot, I don't want to pick it up. If it's cold, then I can pick it up, okay? But if it's hot, I need to approach it with appropriate places, things to do that with. My hands are not big enough to do this. So I can use some beaker tongs to pick this up appropriately, okay? One of the other things that I can use to deal with that when it's hot are these gloves. Now you've got to be careful with these gloves because while they should be capable of handling hot things. Clearly, they cannot handle hot things at certain places. They do catch on fire. If we put things directly on them, they will melt. Okay, so we've got to be cautious with those, but they are capable of picking things up and moving them for short periods of time. Okay, so we cannot use them to sit and hold something, but they can be used to move them. Okay, so that's stuff about handling things that have been on our hot plates. Our hot plates are capable of heating things in small bursts. That's usually what we use them for. For the things that we do with these, they have actual temperatures that are listed on them. This is our stir stuff, but we have temperatures that we can do for this. You will be given guides for where you want to turn this to for the temperatures that we're looking for. Those will be given to you for the experiments that we're using them for. So it'll say turn it to this part. We'll give you a guide for where that is so that you know where to turn it to. Make sure that you're not turning it way above that, because otherwise we're going to have fun things that can happen that are explosive that you really don't want. We don't want that kind of experiment to be happening in our laboratories. So those are our hot plates. We need to make sure that we're cautious when we use them. We don't want to move them when they're hot. Once we're done with them, we're going to unplug them, and we're going to leave them exactly where they are until they're completely cool, which usually means leave them there until the lab is over, and your instructor will move them when they're cold. Okay, so that's everything I think I have about your hot plates. Thanks, guys. We're done with that.